Hello, this is Paul Kilday, who I had the pleasure of meeting when I was a cardiothoracic intensive care nurse. And Paul's with us today to share some of his thoughts about his mental well-being during his time as a patient, as a person who has chronic illness, and just as a human that he is in general. So Paul, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself today?
Yeah, no problem. Hiya. Well, 2 years ago today, actually, I had a double lung transplant. I needed this because of complications due to treatment I had for leukemia many years ago. During that time, I had difficulties. It was not an easy time, but I'm going to talk a little bit about how I tried to keep my mental health as good as I possibly could. I'll maybe say a little bit about what didn't work as much as what did work, and I'll just see how it goes. Yeah, let's see how the conversation goes.
So you've just mentioned there you're going to talk a little bit about things that did work. So what do you think was really helpful during those kind of that obviously really challenging situation that it's hard?
Well, the main thing that The main thing for me, I think, has been trying to document things. If ever I have a thought about anything, I always keep my phone on me and I try and note it down. I don't know whether that thought is actually going to be perceptive or useful in any way, but you can have a look back at it later and decide that for yourself. But because thoughts are transitory, you think something and then you can forget it 30 seconds later. I think it's better to actually write these things down, take a note of it, and then go back and address it later if you feel the need to. So what I do is I take those thoughts and I try and put them into blog posts. I keep a blog called, it's got the pithy title of Life, Love, Leukemia and Lung Failure. And in it, I try and take all those little individual thoughts and try and put them into a cohesive post as to what I'm feeling at any given time. I think it's quite useful to try and put those thoughts together and try and address how you're feeling on any given day.
And I know I personally really benefited when I was our relationship, it was the role of the nurse of the patient. I really benefited from actually being able to read that blog because you can tell us a little bit more about. I didn't ever hear Paul's voice until a couple of weeks ago when I met him when he'd come up to Newcastle, and because Paul had a tracheostomy in and was on really quite high intensity ventilation, so wasn't able to speak. So tell us a little bit more about how the writing became a really powerful tool.
Well, yeah, because it was almost 10 months I spent without any voice at all, which is kind of difficult for someone like me. So I had to find some manner of voicing things, and you can get along just about on a daily basis with lip reading and things like that, but it's not really useful for trying to get more long-winded thoughts out. So actually trying to compose them and put them down on a bit of paper or a computer screen is actually incredibly useful. You say that you hadn't heard me speak until 2 weeks ago, but I think you had a fair handle on what my voice actually is, even in spite of that, because I did take the time and try and put it all together. And the thing that I think about it is that because I came from a background of being a scientist, if I can't explain something to someone else, then I've not really understood it myself. So trying to put thoughts together in this way helps me understand them as well. Like I say, the individual thoughts they kind of stand alone, but if you try and put them together, it's actually much more helpful. So you can kind of get a better handle on how you're feeling at any time by trying to put them into something a bit more cohesive and a bit more long-winded. So, it's actually incredibly useful for putting more complicated thoughts about what's going on together, because if you can't explain it to somebody, then you're not really understanding it yourself. And that also helps when you're trying to explain it to doctors as well. If you note these things down, they're actually useful for when you go into consultations or when doctors' rounds come. Because then you can use that as a reference point and say, this is what I was wondering, can you explain it to me, so that I can understand it better.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very useful tool.
And just in terms of the kind of things that you write down, you've just mentioned there that you would write down medical questions and kind of practical questions about your health. What kind of feelings did you associate? So did you ever kind of, I know a lot on your posts, it's fantastic the way you write. It's really storytelling and really real, and you can really get a zest of your personality in there. But what kind of feelings did you want to communicate to people? Because I know from our relationship, times it could be really frustrating, you know, when you can't communicate your basic needs, things like this. Did it help kind of distinguish how, you know, what needs needed to be met?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the difficult things, like you say, the frustration is helped by it, because you can say the more complicated things by doing it this way. And, you know, you can be sitting there and, you know, it's easy to say to a nurse or a doctor that's coming towards you that that you're scared or you're frustrated or whatever. But if you can explain to them why you are, it's so much better. And, you know, forcing yourself to actually put it down helps you kind of crystallize these ideas almost. You know, it's, you take the basic ideas and extrapolate them on them a bit, and, you know, make them a bit more fully rounded. You know, it's better for, you know, trying to get your own head around how you're feeling.
Yeah.
You know, you have these basic feelings that you are scared, but understanding why you're scared, you know, whether it's to do with your breathing or whether it's to do with anything else medically, you can just say, this is what I'm feeling. Can you explain why I'm feeling this way? You know, it's incredibly helpful to be able to put that across. Yeah,
definitely. And so what would you kind of suggest for other people who might be, it doesn't have to be with, I know you suffered from chronic illnesses for a long time, you've been through double lung transplant, like you're quite an exceptional person really to be speaking with, but this advice, it's all really, it's all relevant for every one of us, isn't it? So what kind of takeaways would you give to people from your experience?
Definitely, it's the thing that I find most important about it is that you not only document it, but you then share it.
Yeah.
You know, how you're feeling at any given time is one thing, but if you can share it with someone else, you know, the idea that I take from it mostly is that if a problem shared is a problem halved, then if you pass it on to one person, that's halving it. If you pass it on to two, that's quartering it, and eighth, and then 16th. And, you know, the more people you share these ideas with about how you're feeling, the better, because you're basically hoping that other people can understand what you're going through. And to do that, you actually need to tell them. You know, I spoke with some of my friends at the weekend, and they basically gave me into trouble because I don't share enough with them.
Yeah.
You know, they said that it's almost like I try and spare them things at times, and I shouldn't, because if I spread it out amongst more of them, it also means that it's not any one of them that's dealing with it. You know, if I'm spreading it out a lot so that I don't have a lot to deal with, it also means they don't have a lot to deal with too. And it also means they can share it with each other.
Yeah.
You know, they can talk about it as well. And, you know, when it comes to that, it's all about not isolating yourself. You know, if anything's going on, you know, you should tell somebody, because, you know, one other thing I realised at the weekend was I'm basically screaming at people to understand me, and then, you know, giving them into trouble for not doing so. And I've not given them the tools to understand.
Yeah.
You know, I've not given them the chance to actually understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So I need to share more with them. And, you know, the way that I do it is by writing the blog, and it's very useful for that. You know, at first I felt that it was just me typing out for my own benefit and, you know, getting the catharsis from writing it down. And I thought I was just, you know, shouting into the ether, hoping that somebody would get something from it. And it turns out now there's actually quite a few people reading it. So it's, you know, that's also beneficial in that you feel good about yourself because you think you're doing good.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
It's incredibly important for that. And, you know, it stops me feeling isolated as well. You know, even on the days where, say, I am on my own, my friends can't come around, I know that I can write something and they'll pick it up later on, and, you know, everybody can get some good out of that, because, you know, in my experience, there have been a few people in my life that we found out a bit too late that they hadn't shared their worries, and that's always my concern now, you know, is that there are people out there that are suffering alone. You know, being on your own is hard, but you don't have to be, you know, there is always somebody out there that you can connect to. And so if you do that, whether it's be by writing it down and putting it on a computer screen, or whether it's just phoning somebody up or whatever, I think, you know, the enemy here is isolation. You know, you should just bite the bullet, tell somebody that there's a problem, and, you know, give people the credit that they deserve, because when you do actually tell them, they do come rushing to help.
Yeah.
You know, it's incredibly important to do that.
We just had a quick chat there before, didn't we, about self-stigma, and it's this perception that when you aren't telling someone, you're not giving them the permission to have their own opinion about it, but you've already filled in those blanks, haven't you?
Yeah,
and that actually becomes really toxic, because then you create the isolation, but actually when you do open up, most people, you'd be really, really surprised, and that's from my experience as well. You'd be so surprised at how well they respond and how much
you
they want to support
get upset about how you think they're going to respond, because you've, like you say, filled in the blanks yourself.
Yeah.
And then you give them the chance, and they actually have their own opinions, and they're better than you hoped for, and you wonder why you didn't do it before.
Exactly.
You know, we should just open up and do it.
And we were saying as well, closing this gap of where we think we are and where we think everyone else is, but actually everyone's got their own struggles, and everyone is going through, you know, something. And if we just normalize it, but through communication, then it prevents these kind of gaps, these, you know, these walls from coming up, whatever you want to call them. But that separation, that is one way that we can start to bridge it, isn't it? Just by communicating.
I think so, because as soon as I started telling people that I was struggling a bit, they started telling me about the ways in which they were.
Exactly.
So like you say, we've all got it.
Yeah.
And we should all realise that not everybody's having a perfect life, and, you know, we've all got our struggles, but, you know, we can share these struggles, and it'll make it easier on all of us.
Yeah. Fab. Yeah, totally agree. Well, thank you so much for your time, Paul. It's been a pleasure.
Paul's, no problem at all.
Fighting fit and well at the moment, aren't you? You're doing really well.
I certainly am, yes.
Has blown away probably all medical odds at multiple occasions.
I think that's fair to say.
So yeah, so with a lot of respect, Paul, thank you so much for speaking with me this morning.
No problem at all. Thanks very much, Em.
No doubt again, we'll be hearing from you again soon, now that you're exercising the full use of your voice.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah, okay, take care. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Emma. Bye-bye.
Bye.